right, we have got our guest Brian here with us with CAIC, and we have got some storms that we want to talk about that are pretty much already are starting, but are going to come more into this weekend, week to weekend. But we are going to talk about what's to come with all of those. So Brian, oh my goodness, where should we start?
I mean, we're in the middle of a very potent March spring storm. This is not a unique situation to Colorado, but we haven't seen a storm kind of this big in, maybe since 2003. I don't think we'll reach those levels, but this is really going to impact the Front Range, the I-25 corridor, but I'll talk about what it's going to do to the mountains as well. So here you can see what this storm is producing. So the heavy snowfall kind of started to ramp up on Wednesday, really picked up overnight on Wednesday, and then continued just in through Thursday. And you can see these areas of white. We're looking at storm totals along the divide and east side of the Front Range, in the 3 to 4 foot range. So this is going to be quite impressive. It's going to make travel along the I-25 and the I-70 corridor, particularly east of the Continental Divide, near impossible kind of during, the overnight Wednesday and through Thursday. And we're looking at storm totals here. You can see really deep storm totals along the Sangre de Cristo range, up into Monarch Pass, which could end up, with close to 3 feet of snow. Pikes Peak region, and then all the way up along the Eastern Continental Divide, all the way to the Wyoming border with, like I said, storm totals into 2 to even upwards of 4 feet. And so what this is going to do is lead to an obvious uptick in avalanche danger with this much snow falling. The first concern as the snowfall starts to accumulate are going to be avalanches in the new storm snow. So we're going to have both drifting snow. It's drifting from easterly winds, so we can expect unusual loading patterns like on west-facing terrain. And so expect wind slabs like the one here to become really widespread as we start to accumulate more than about a foot of drifted snow. Some of these are going to grow really large as we start crossing, 18 inches and 2 foot storm thresholds. Here's what these wind slab avalanches look like from a point of view. Now, these don't look all that big, but if you're in consequential terrain and get swept off your feet, these could certainly lead to serious injury or worse. But as the storm snow starts to accumulate, we can expect even bigger avalanches to start to break.
Yes, and that's kind of what I want to jump into is when all of that accumulates, what is it going to take to create a bigger avalanche? And do you kind of have a visual of what that might look like for us?
Yeah, it so happens I do. We do have persistent weak layers that we've been talking about, throughout the season that are buried anywhere from kind of 3 to 5 feet deep, depending on where in the mountains you are. They're getting harder to impact, but this type of storm could start to see avalanches break into those deeper weak layers. And here's an example of one from just a few days ago, just east of Leadville near Mount Sheridan. And you can see these avalanches are breaking quite deep. In this case, the crown's 3 to 4 feet deep. And as we start to load our persistent weak layers with this incoming storm, we have the chance for avalanches to step down into these deeper weak layers. So anywhere that receives more than about 18 or 20 inches of storm snow, these really big, destructive, very hard to survive avalanches need to be on our radar. And as you can see, we're going to have avalanche warnings in place through Thursday in these areas that are red. As the snow starts to impact the San Juan Mountains Thursday into Friday, you can see this large swath in the southwest corner of the state is going to go to considerable avalanche danger. So what this means is essentially a big dramatic uptick in avalanche danger the latter part of this work week, and that's going to last through the weekend. So anywhere we've got the warnings in place and high avalanche danger here indicated by these red areas, backcountry travel is not recommended while the warning is in place, and that's likely to last in through Friday morning. Once the snow starts to taper off, we have lighter snowfall that persists through the weekend. And this means that avalanche conditions will slowly ease and we may get rid of the watches and warnings. But because we just had such a dramatic change in a big loading event, dangerous avalanche conditions and widespread considerable avalanche danger is going to be blanketing most of Colorado's mountains through the weekend and probably into early next week before we start to stabilize.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because that was my next question. Was so much snow falling in this huge storm. I was like, it's almost like you don't want to lift it until like a little bit until next week because it's just
it just takes time for the snowpack to adjust. And so when we're talking about snowfall rates, particularly in these warning areas, that we're at 2 inches an hour. This is a really dramatic change to the snowpack. And while avalanche danger peaks very rapidly, it takes much longer to subside. And so you're going to need to give the snowpack essentially, 3 to 4 days to really adjust to this type of loading event.
Sure, that is great to add in there, and you need that time as well. So go ahead, Brian, you know what to do. Tell us more where we could get those live updates so we can be sure to stay in the know as we go.
Yeah, well, all of us here at the Avalanche Center are watching forecast models pretty much nonstop during this big storm event. So we will always have updated information on colorado.gov/avalanche and on the CAIC mobile app. So please check for current conditions, make travel plans that are using safe terrain, given how much snow you're going to get depending on where you're going, and stay safe out there.
Thank you so much for the report. Hopefully everybody will be able to stay safe during this storm for sure. So thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate it. And I can't wait for our next update. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you next week.